Hello there, wonderful people. I just found out that one of my favorite games of all time, Okami, is getting a sequel after 18 years since its release. So it's got me thinking about some other games that haven't gotten a new release in recent years. Most of the time the videos I make are about games or shows that have come out recently, but today I decided instead to talk about a few game series that's fan base hasn't died out even though it's been years since we've heard any news about them at all. One of the games today I'm talking about hasn't had a new release in over 8 years, which I hadn't even realized had been released that long ago until I started writing the script, but apparently it has been that long. So let's take a deeper look into what's keeping these video game series standing against the test of time. And be sure to stay tuned till the very end of the video to hear about 2 games I personally think deserve a sequel or another title in their series. And as always, be sure to subscribe so that you can stay up to date on any future analysis videos that come out, as well as checking out some of my gaming content that I have there as well. With that said, let's get started. Now, honestly, there are quite a few franchises that could fit the bill of not having a main release in at least over 5 years, which was the parameter I set for being able to count as a dead game in this video. But I wanted to focus on 4 series that all have a different reason for staying relevant currently, since I didn't want to just start repeating myself over and over again. To name the 6 examples that I'll be covering today, they are Jak and Daxter, a series I had heard of only recently, even though its first game came out all the way back in 2001. Infamous, a game franchise that I really wish had a new release coming out ever since I beat Second Son on the PS5. Danganronpa, though you might not believe it's been over 5 years since V3 came out at first, with all the fan content being pushed out every year. Lastly, for an obvious pick, Mass Effect, which I'm including even though Mass Effect 5 has been announced for reasons I will go over later. All of these games use a different way to stay in the mind of its players long after you finish playing them. So let's start with a game that's been staying alive by being a beloved classic, Jak and Daxter. Jak and Daxter, who, since I'll be talking about the franchise a whole lot throughout this section, I'm just going to shorten to JD for simplicity's sake, started out as an action-adventure platformer that first came out on the PlayStation 2, featuring the 2 main characters, Jak and, of course, Daxter, on their quest to return Daxter to his human form after he's transformed into a weasel by falling into Dark Echo and stopping Dark Echo from corrupting their entire world. The series was constantly changing based on what other games were coming out at the same time, so there was a clear direction shift between the first and second game. The games that came out after the first would shift to a darker form of storytelling while also adding a gun using different forms of Echo for combat, instead of Jak using Echo himself, which is explained at the very beginning of Jak 2. Jak 2 and 3 also introduced Jak having different forms, with the destructive Dark Jak and the defensive Light Jak. The later releases were coming out alongside the game franchise Ratchet & Clank, which shared many game elements, leading to there being many comparisons made between them by players. Another challenge that this series faced was the fact that Naughty Dog was transitioning its focus to a more person-based narratives like Uncharted, leaving little room for JD to make a return. Sometimes games aren't dropped because of bad reviews or a company going under. Sometimes the game dies simply because the company decided to move into a different direction. There had briefly been talks at one point of a Jak 4 coming out, but since they were going in this new direction, they didn't think it would be a good fit for the series. The idea was shut down pretty quickly. So realistically, this makes the series one of the more likely to get a possible revival, since these are the only things holding them back. It also isn't like the series doesn't have a following. It does, and there are a lot of people that want something to come out like the Ratchet & Clank 2016 remake. Fans have even gone as far as to create their own port of the first game to the PC in 2022, which shows just how connected to the game people still feel. All we can do now is wait and see if all this effort is enough for companies like Naughty Dog to revive the series and give it the chance that people have been waiting for years. Now, for a game like Infamous, the interesting thing about it is that it already had a revamp with Second Son and First Light. The only game I played in the series so far is Second Son, so there's not much I can personally say about Infamous 1 and 2, but I'll try my best to give a generalized idea of what type of games they were. The OG games in the series, 1 and 2, featured a character named Cole McGrath, who was well known for his lightning abilities after getting them from an explosion that gave others powers as well. This series is known for its open world environment, allowing the player to use Cole's abilities for movement, battle, and puzzles, as well as its very popular karma system. This system made it so that the choices you made throughout the game would allow you to be seen by the characters in the game as either a just or corrupt person, as well as changing the story you got at the very end. You didn't even have to commit to which playthrough you went for even after you made the first choice. Though it does take some effort, you can switch from good to bad and back again as long as you're willing to put in the time. Infamous 1 and 2 set up a formula that would be expanded upon in its revamp Second Son. Talking through my own experience of playing the game, you play as the down with the patriarchy Delson Rose, stealing the powers of those around you in your quest to find a power to cure his friends and family after they've been turned to stone. It was meant to be a jumpstart to revitalize the series, but after that, only First Light came out, and that was in the same year, being about a side character that you encounter during part of your playthrough of Second Son. Generally, this wouldn't have been a bad move at all, but when you pair it with the fact that it was also a prequel that was made to take place before you played Second Son, you already had an idea of how the story was going to end, so it felt like a soft landing compared to the roller coaster that Second Son took you on. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about how this game is staying relevant, and it's by just being good. I mean, not to say that the other games I've included so far aren't good, but I played Second Son a few years ago, and just take a look at its graphics. It still looks great. Something I noticed about this series is that of the main games, there wasn't one that was seen as bad compared to the other games I've included. All the Infamous games are rated above a 4.0 at least. I don't think this game died because it was bad or that nobody was playing it. I think it has more to do with the fact that the company behind it just stopped making more games. It's able to stay relevant to this day because of its ability to stand the test of time, and I know that if a new game is announced, a lot of people, including me, would be very happy. Unlike with Jak and Daxter, which the company moved away from because they wanted to move to a different style of storytelling, we're not really sure what happened to Infamous. So even though the companies have moved on from what they were doing before, their reasoning is different, which is why I included both of them.
Objection! Hold it! Hold it! Objection! Hold it! Objection! Objection! Hold it! Hold it! Objection! Hold it! Objection! Objection! Hold it!
Now the thing about Danganronpa is the reason I think it's still standing has less to do with the games themselves and more to do with the fact that it can be easily emulated. Danganronpa is a visual novel series that's about 16 students being stuck in a killing game, with the main character leading trials to find each killer. The game takes place over 6 chapters until they can finally escape after finding out who the true mastermind is. As you can probably tell, the formula is pretty simple. And also, since it's in light novel style, it's not as taxing to create your own version of, rather than games like JD or Infamous, which deal with a combat system and 3D models. Of course, there is a minigame system during the class trials, where players are trying to find out who done it, but other than that, the games are pretty much in typical light novel format, where you walk around and spend time with characters of your choosing. The reason that I'm paying a lot of attention to that is because people aren't just making fan games of Danganronpa, they're making video series in the style of the games too. To show off how different these two development directions are, while still being able to retain the core idea of the main series, I'll be talking about Danganronpa Another, as well as Another 2, and Danganronpa Despair Time. Danganronpa Another is a fan game created by Lineage. I am going to put his name up on the screen. Lineage? Lin. I'm just going to go with Lin so I don't butcher it. With its first chapter coming out in 2013 and the full release coming out in 2015. As I said before, V3 came out in 2017, so this fan game hadn't been created during the dry spell we're currently in. Though I feel like most people know Danganronpa Another sequel, Another 2, more than its predecessor, the first chapter of Danganronpa Another 2 came out the same year as V3 and was fully finished in 2020. Just comparing Another with Another 2, you can see the improvements that Lin had as a developer, which led to Another 2 being a much more enjoyable experience for players as well. Within the Danganronpa community, these games are just known as good fan games, but good Danganronpa games in general. And since Another started in 2013, it's also seen as a classic fan game in the community as well. It didn't just entertain its players, it also led to others becoming inspired and creating their own Danganronpa fan games, which just helped the series stay afloat even longer. Danganronpa Despair Time is a newer edition, as the first trailer for the fan series came out in 2019, and the latest episode only came out about 6 months ago, and it's only just finished its second chapter. Quick side note, I can't find any information regarding the actual handle the the creator is going by other than just the title of the series, but by all means, if someone in the comments knows their actual user ID, please tell me so that I can properly credit them in the description. Anyway, Despair Time. Since it's a video series, it has to do things differently. A viewer isn't able to hang out with each individual character, so instead, Despair Time has mini episodes that come out featuring the characters that die in each chapter, so that you get a better idea of who they were, and main episodes also include a lot more group events and cutscenes to show each character personally, so that you care about them without being able to learn more about them yourselves. Both Another and Despair Time are doing the same thing by creating more content for people who like the Danganronpa franchise, but Despair Time is doing it on YouTube, which makes it more likely for people who don't know anything about Danganronpa to see it. All of these fan creators are creating exposure for the series, which leads to more people trying out the main games, which will make people want to try out the fan games, creating a looping pattern. This looping effect is what's keeping this series in the land of relevance, and from what I've seen researching this topic, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. And then there's Mass Effect. For the final game I'm covering in this video, I wanted to go with something that used to be so mainstream that even if you never played it, you had still heard its name before. In Mass Effect, you play as Commander Shepard in a futuristic world filled with different alien races that you interact with throughout the story of the games. The game mainly started out as RPG focused, but became more and more combat focused with every new release. Now, anyone who has a general idea of the games can tell you that the series really fell apart by Mass Effect 3, but the issues didn't start in that game. They're actually there since Mass Effect 2. As more and more of the games came out, and the original vision that brought so much attention to the games in the first place became lost over time. People liked it for the RPG elements that allowed you to make choices that changed which ending you got. In 2, you could see that still slightly, but all you could do really is that you could choose different dialogue options, which didn't reveal many different paths, and by the time you got to 3, there were no different paths at all. So instead of it being an RPG, it became a linear story. And another thing we have 3 to thank for is its ending. It's bad. I mean, I could word around it to make this more dramatic, but at this point, I think everyone who knows about Mass Effect knows that 3 had a terrible ending. Knowing what we do now, the reason that this ending was so bad was because it was their version 2, after the original got leaked to the public before the game came out. Normally, I wouldn't be calling out something like this since it does make sense for them to redo the ending, but with the ending we got, just give us the original! Especially since it makes so much more sense and added a lot more world building about the Reapers and their whole deal. The trilogy ending on a bad note just made players look forward to Andromeda as a way to make up for that experience, and that went about as well as you could have expected. Then the games just stopped coming out, which was upsetting to many people since it felt like the series that they loved had crashed into a dumpster fire and been left to die. But everything changed in 2020 with the announcement of Mass Effect 5. Currently, it's 2025, and we have heard nothing about it since that announcement. The reason I still included this series, even though it's supposed to have a new release, is because of the state of 5. We've been told that development is going smoothly, but people, and me, don't believe it. It's become something that lingers in the back of your mind, reminding you, oh hey, there might be hope for this series after all. But after Andromeda, no one has high hopes for this. Sometimes, all it takes to stay relevant is to disappoint your fans in the worst way possible, leaving them hoping that next time, you'll finally prove them wrong. Even though we all know you probably won't. Games are able to connect with people through all different walks of life, and they stay with you long after you play them. See, like I said before, Okami was the reason I first thought of this topic. Like I said in the beginning of this video, this is the only series that I'm eagerly awaiting a continuation of. If you don't know, there was a series of games that Nintendo created called by the little-known name of Pokemon Rangers. I played so much of Guardian Signs and Shadows of Almia as a child, and I just have to say, they're really good. Please play them. If my wish is granted in the next Nintendo Direct we get news about a new version coming to the Switch 2, I will literally pass out. Another series that I want a new release of, just so I can get into the franchise, is Sly Cooper. Please, for the love of everything, let me play at least one of these games in my life. It doesn't matter how dead a game is, as long as people are still talking about it and playing it. So don't give up on them no matter how long it takes. Who knows, maybe the next time you hear about it is when you get the game of your dreams. And hey, if the games I've talked about in this video have gotten a new release after this has been posted, by God, tell me, I will look into it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and remember, Dead games are dead only as long as you say they are.